The Pitchsider. Pitchside for every game.
Hello and welcome back to the Pitchsider Podcast. Hope you've had a great week. Definitely a lot of football to talk about. A lot of football has been played, especially in the Premier League. We've had a few of the biggest games of the season we're likely to see and some interesting results. And there's also been a lot of transfers as the transfer window starts to really heat up. So let's get into it. Let's start with the Premier League. So as I mentioned, we've had a few big games this week. We've had a couple of midweek games which carried over from last week's. We've had, being the biggest, Arsenal versus United. Today we've had Manchester City have played Tottenham. Liverpool have played Chelsea. So there's been a few big games around the top. I mean, the Liverpool-Chelsea game obviously is now more of a mid-table battle, which most people would be a bit disappointed with that ending 0-0. But let's start off and let's have a quick talk about the Manchester City versus Tottenham game. So it was a big game for City. Arsenal obviously were about 9 points clear at the top of the table. They needed to win this game, and it really got off to a shaky start with Man City conceding 2 goals really close to half-time. They went in 2-0 down. But then City had a very good response, scoring 4 goals and ending 4-2, getting the 3 points. Haaland getting back on the scoring sheet. So yeah, it definitely was a good game for City. A bit shaky in the first half. Tottenham looked a lot better. But Tottenham seemed to have fallen that sort of a bit of a hurdle mid-season, not doing that well. Lost 2 now on the bounce with 2 big games of Arsenal and Man City. That was as close. It was their time to sort of close that gap, which they were unable to do. So it's a bit disappointing from a Tottenham Hotspurs fan, but they were 2 hard games, and I mean, they're the 2 best teams in the league at the moment, so can only take them with sort of a pinch of salt. It's not like you're losing to bottom of the table, so all good. But yeah, definitely 6 points missed out there by Tottenham in their pursuit of a title. Also, this week we've had a couple of the biggest game this weekend was obviously the Arsenal-Manchester United derby. Big game. 2 teams in the top 4. Manchester sort of wanted to close the points on Arsenal. Thrilling game that ended 3-2 with Nketiah getting 2 goals, really showing that with a missing Jesus, Arsenal aren't lacking anything up front, which a lot of people were concerned about when he did get injured. Arsenal, Man City, Manchester United, probably one of the best games of the weekend. As Arsenal had the pressure of City, obviously winning 3-0, but at Wolves with Haaland getting his hat-trick and now 4 goals in 2 games. So he's definitely back to his best. But yeah, Arsenal really flying high. Made a couple of good signings. The new signing of Trossard came on. And yeah, had a sort of a quiet debut, but fans weren't expecting too much from him. But yeah, definitely a good showcase by Arsenal. Obviously, and United seemed to do well as well. Just unfortunate that Arsenal were just a bit too strong for them. So this means that Arsenal now have a 5-point lead on City with a game in hand. Man City still stay 4th, but Newcastle are above them on goal difference. So it's definitely shaping up to be a very close title fight. Obviously, we've just gone past the halfway point in the season, and definitely a good sort of run of fixtures, and it is still fairly close. Arsenal definitely have a good lead from Newcastle being 11 points, so it's definitely between Arsenal and Man City, but again, anything can happen in football. Further down the table, Tottenham to 11th is about 5 points, so any of the teams, Tottenham, Brighton, Fulham, Brentford, Liverpool, Chelsea and Aston Villa, all could be fighting out for those Europa and Europa Conference League spaces. Even maybe the top four spaces if Newcastle, Man City don't carry on the way they are. But yeah, definitely a good weekend in the Premier League if you're one of those clubs. Moving further down into the table, one of the biggest games that probably had a lot riding on for both sets of fans was West Ham versus Everton. Both managers are very close to be getting the sack. West Ham fans believed that if they lost this game, David Moyes would be sacked. And Everton, they did lose this game 2-0. Is it curtains for Frank Lampard at Everton? Only time will tell. At the time of recording this podcast, he is still in charge. The CEO and owner of Everton have said it's not up to him whether he sacks him, but it seems a bit of an odd statement when you are the owner of a club. But yeah, West Ham get a little bit of a breathing room, moves them out of the relegation zone up to 15th. But yeah, the teams below them still have some games in hand, so they could be back down there. But yeah, it's very good. Everton, it's very poor from them. They very likely that Lampard will survive any more coming weeks. But if you're Everton fan, as Frank Lampard says, you take day by day and only can improve. You are in the January transfer window, so you can still sign players. It'd be interesting to see who they would like to add to try and save themselves from relegation again. But it's definitely would be sad to see Everton go down. Be the first time in 62 years that they have got relegated. They're a big club, big stadium. But yeah, it doesn't seem the players are sort of playing for Frank Lampard. And whether Frank Lampard needs to drop down to sort of get some more management experience. But it doesn't seem to have ever worked out for Frank Lampard in the Premier League, a bit like Steven Gerrard. So it'd be interesting to see if he does leave, who will replace him. There was a lot of links to David Moyes returning, but for West Ham's point of view, he had a very successful season with them last season, obviously getting into Europe, getting into that. West Ham got into the Europa Conference League final. They definitely deserve to give him more time. Definitely need to see where he can take them. Give them to the end of the season, see where they are. But yeah, it could be curtains for him if he carries on losing. But yeah, definitely a 3 points has saved his job this time. Whether they can continue to climb in the table, be interesting to see. But we are halfway through the season, so the whole league can change. But yeah, if you're a betting man, definitely put money on Arsenal to win the league. Let's move to Europe. We've had a few big stories coming from Europe. Probably the most high profile is coming from Juventus. So Juventus in Italy have had a 15-point deduction in the season's points total due to following investigations into the club's past dealings. The Serie A giants were accused of fixing their balance sheets by artificial gains from transfers. This point drops them from 3rd to 10th in the league, and Juventus deny any wrongdoing and confirm they will appeal the decision. But basically, this looks at they have signed about 62 players, I believe, in the last 2 or 3 seasons, and they have basically been playing around with their transfer values, the amount they sell them for, the amount they sign them for, to basically sort of fiddle their books. And they've been investigated due to the fact that they are a stock listed company and have to release all of their shares, so all of their financial details online. So they have to publish them for basically the public to see. And the authorities have investigated and have accused them of fixing their books and have given them a point deduction. And this would be very significant in their sort of title hopes. They weren't that close. They were sort of up there in the title. And yeah, 15 points is a lot to lose in a very tight league where basically any teams, there's about 5 or 6 teams that fight for 4 places in Europe, and these teams these other teams have definitely sort of benefited from Juventus's wrongdoing. We don't like to see this in the sport, and it's been good that they've been able to be found out. But yeah, we'll see where this goes and where this carries on. But yeah, it's definitely Juventus weren't having the best of seasons, and this is just more sort of fuel to the fire, if anything. And this could be one of their worst seasons they've ever had. And there was definitely talks at the beginning of the season whether their manager should get sacked. This isn't anything to sort of do with him. It doesn't really have any dealings. But yeah, it's definitely something that they need to fix off and on the pitch. And yeah, we will see where they will end up at the end of the season, but likely not to be in the Champions League spaces. If we stick with Serie A for a minute, Napoli have played AC Milan at the top of the Serie A, and Napoli went 12 points above AC Milan this week. They played a game extra than AC Milan, but yeah, they're 12 points clear at the top of the table after the beaten of Slatantina, who are about a mid-table team in the Serie A. But yeah, it definitely looks like Napoli's season to win. And Usman now is 3 goals above Inter's Martinez in the race for the Serie A Golden Boot. And it's definitely looking to be a good season for Napoli. And hopefully they can end their 32-year wait of winning the league title. So it'd be interesting to see how their season goes. But yeah, definitely they're the best team in Italy at the moment, and it'd be interesting to see where they will go from here. But yeah, elsewhere in the league, AC Milan and Inter are both on 38 and 37 represented. AC Milan are on 38 and Inter Milan are on 37, with Lazio in 4th. Atalanta and Roma sit 5th and 6th. So yeah, definitely a sort of topsy-turvy time in Italy. A lot of different teams winning, not getting the same Juventus winning all the time. So it'd be interesting to see where this league can go. But yes, definitely watch Italy, especially if you're going to watch Napoli. They score a lot of goals and play very good football. Moving over to Germany, 2 stories have come out of Dortmund. Sebastian Haller, who Dortmund signed to replace Haaland, has made a return, and following his cancer treatment, he is ready to play. And yeah, he's definitely a top striker. Definitely it's good to see where he can go in the Bundesliga, and see how he can sort of fill Haaland's shoes. But yeah, it's definitely a good story to see him make a full return from his testicular cancer, and yeah, definitely good to see him back on the pitch when he eventually makes that. But yeah, the other news coming out is the young striker Moukoko from Borussia Dortmund has signed a new deal to take him up to 2026. 16-year-old striker. He has scored 6 goals, providing 6 assists in 22 appearances for Dortmund this season. Definitely sort of a good up-and-coming talent. He was linked to a lot of clubs. I sort of like Chelsea and Liverpool's. So yeah, it's definitely good to see him extend that. It's definitely good to see him sign and stay at a good club that's very good for bringing up talent. There's a lot of definitely good talented players that have come out of Dortmund from the last couple of years, with like Pulisic and Sanchez and Haaland and Bellingham. So all of these players are fantastic, and he looks to be next in line. In the Bundesliga, Dortmund beat Angers 4-3. Union Berlin continue their sort of winning ways over Hoffenheim. Biggest shock was Bayern Munich have been held at a 1-1 draw against RB Leipzig, but the German team continues to be top by 5 points. This is the first round of fixtures we've had from the Bundesliga in 68 days. So it's been a long time without sort of league football in Germany. If we move quickly on to Spain, Atletico Madrid beat Real Valladolid 3-0 in the Saturday game with Morata and Griezmann scoring. And it, definitely sort of boosts their standings. Barcelona continue to be top after they won this weekend. Real Madrid are yet to play. Real Sociedad are high flyers in third place with Atletico Madrid fourth. But Barcelona seem to have a sort of 3-point lead, no games in hand on Real Madrid. So it's still anyone's to play, but yeah, you'd think Barcelona, after all of their signings they made this summer and all of their financial problems, they look set to be on track to sort of going back and winning, taking that crown off Real Madrid, or can Real Madrid or Real Sociedad continue with the pressure? Real Madrid obviously have 2 games in hand on Real Sociedad, but they are level on points, and it'd be interesting to see where Real Madrid end up and whether they will continue their fight in the Champions League as well as in the La Liga. Let's move on to some sort of transfers, concern deals. Definitely now seems to be more spicing up in the transfer window as it starts to sort of draw to the end of January. As always, we'll go through some of the confirmed transfers this week, and we will then talk about some of the sort of rumours. But if you want to keep up to date with any of the latest transfers, check out our weekly gossip page on our website, thepitchsider.com, or check us out on Instagram or Twitter, which is at thepitchsider, for any of the latest transfers day by day. Let's start. So on Monday the 16th, Danilo was signed by Nottingham Forest from Pamos. Good signing. Obviously, Nottingham Forest continue to add to the number of players they have signed. Wolves have signed Pablo Scarabi. The Spanish winger signs for Wolves for 4.4 million and has scored 11 goals in 35 Ligue 1 appearances. So looks to be a good sort of player for Wolves, and it'd be interesting to see how well he does in the Premier League. Bournemouth have been signing a Lorient winger called Dango Atarari. Sorry for the pronunciation. Yeah, it seems to be rumoured for about 20 million. He scored 6 goals, provided 6 assists in 18 League 1 appearances this season. So looks to be a fantastic signing for Brighton, and definitely one to watch out for in the Premier League with Bournemouth, and whether he can sort of take Brighton away from the relegation zone with his sort of flair and his goal providence. Be interesting to see. But yeah, it's definitely a great signing for Bournemouth. Internationally, we have Memphis Depay has signed for Atletico Madrid after leaving Barcelona for 2.6 million. His contract was up in the summer, and he has joined Atletico Madrid. Good signing for them. They've now got abundance of sort of attackers. Depay replaces Felix, who left to go to Chelsea on loan. And Benfica have signed defender Gors from Wolves after Wolves have signed Craig Dawson for 3.3 million from West Ham. Looks to be a good defender. He's a great defender for West Ham, and definitely one that they would definitely like to sort of try and help them be more solid at the back. Newcastle have let Chris Wood go on loan to Nottingham Forest. As we mentioned earlier, Trossard has signed for Arsenal in a £21 million move. Definitely a good backup option for Arsenal, adding depth to their sort of wing options with Saka and Martinelli, both in excellent form at the moment. And Trossard will provide competition and sort of a good sort of balance to their squad. Chelsea have signed another attacker in Noko Mareki from PSV for £30.7 million. Looks to be a great English attacker involved in the English setup, and yeah, definitely good to see what he can bring to the Premier League. And when he gets his debut, he'll provide a lot of competition in that sort of attacking options. But he's Chelsea's sixth signing, bringing their total spend this month to 178 million. Definitely a lot of money Chelsea have spent this season, and yet see where it can take them in the Premier League. Leicester have signed Victor Christiansen from Copenhagen for 17.17 million. He is a defender, so definitely sort of maybe he's the defender to sort of replace Fofana. He definitely is sort of an up-and-coming Denmark sort of defender. Whether he can bring what sort of Christensen from Chelsea brought. And yeah, he could be one. Christian joined on a 5.5-year contract until 2028, and yeah, definitely brings a lot of more options for Brendan Rodgers, who has long-term injuries to the likes of James Justin. Final signing, which we'll bring you, is Danny Ings. He joined Aston Villa from Aston Villa to West Ham for 12 million. Definitely looks to be a good option for West Ham, bolster their attacks, and yeah, definitely looks to be one that can help West Ham sort of survive their relegation battle and sort of push them a bit further up the table where they probably more likely belong. Let's have a look at some of the more rumours that have been around. Some of the rumours this week is that West Ham have also been linked Harry Maguire, but this was quickly denied and rejected by Manchester United, who have confirmed that Harry Maguire will be at the club past this January window and until the end of the season. Brighton's midfielder Moises Caicedo has been linked to Chelsea. Chelsea tested the waters with a £65 million bid, which was rejected. And looks to be a player Chelsea are after. One of the hot topics this window, whether he will leave Chelsea or not, is Hakim Ziyech. After all of the attacking sort of options Chelsea have brought in, looks to be one that could be on his way out, and it could be linked to a couple of clubs are interested in him. One of them being Barcelona, which could be a swap for Kessia, the midfielder, who's 26 years old. He has also been linked to Everton, who look to bring him in. Ziyech has made just 6 starts in all competitions this season, 2 of them which have come in the last 8 days with Chelsea's injury crisis. Another attacker from Juventus is Vlahovic, while Chelsea, PSG and Bayern Munich have been made aware of the 22-year-old's availability, and he's likely at target at the moment is United, and definitely looks to be a striker that United could bring in to replace sort of Ronaldo, and their goal scoring threats would be increased by bringing this striker in, and could sort of push them to be further up the table. A couple of sort of options with extending their contracts is De Gea. He was willing to take a pay cut if that's because his long-term future at United, but I think United are looking for a more reliable keeper. De Gea is now sort of aging out, and definitely one of the ones that they looking to replace. Option could be Portugal's goalkeeper Costa. Manchester United also want to secure the long-term future of Garnacho, their 18-year-old winger, who's from Argentina. They want him to sign a 8-year contract. His current deal has more than 4 years on it currently. Roma are looking at Udinese's Spanish forward Defario. He is a player that's played in the Premier League, especially under Everton. But yeah, they look to sort of be looking after Roma look to be sort of trying to sign him this summer or this window. Arsenal have had a bid for Camavinga rejected. It looked to be a loan, but Carlos Ancelotti has said that he is untouchable this season. Nottingham Forest are trying to sign defender Mason Holgate from Premier League rivals Everton this month to look to shore up their back line and sort of try and save themselves from the drop. Another one that could be interesting is Adama Traore. After a sort of unsuccessful loan at Barcelona, he's been playing with Wolves, but his contract is up, and the 26-year-old has been in talks with Atalanta and Napoli over a free transfer this summer. The final two bits we are going to talk about is about two managers. So it's been confirmed that Luis Enrique, the former Spain and Barcelona manager, is in the options to be taken over the Brazil job following the departure of Brazil's manager Tete after the World Cup. So be interesting to see where he can take us. And one more is Conte looks to be leaving Spurs at the end of the season. This is only a rumour at the moment and hasn't been confirmed, but it would definitely be disappointing from sort of a Spurs side. They haven't sort of succeeded as well as they would have thought under him. No one's really done as well in Spurs and from sort of Pochettino. Pochettino is available, whether they'll bring him back at the club. Be interesting to see. But yeah, definitely one. I mean, Conte is definitely a brilliant manager, but hasn't been able to be successful at Spurs. Will anyone ever be able to be successful at Spurs? Definitely an interesting topic. And definitely an interesting one to look at. If he is to leave, who would we bring in? They've tried sort of big managers, bringing in Mourinho, sort of Conte. Maybe it's time for Zidane to come back, maybe. Could be a good article to write about. Let me know if you're interested in sort of hearing about that. Contact us on our socials. But yeah, that about wraps up this podcast. Please like, subscribe and share. And yeah, hope you have a good week. And yeah, for sort of the latest news and that, keep an eye on our socials. We'll definitely keep you up to date with everything that's going around in the football world. And I'll see you next week. Goodbye.
For all the latest news, transfers, and football articles, check out thepitchsider.com. It's the place to be. Contact us on our socials. Instagram and Twitter is @thepitchsider, or via email is thepitchsider@hotmail.com.